Hello, my name is Theresa West, and I lead our business development team here at Vector Solutions, along with our change management practice. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about change management best practices for Salesforce implementations. First, let's just start with what change management is and how we manage change here at Vector Solutions. Change management really is the people side of change, and we follow the ProSci research-based change management methodology when we work with our customers to manage change and adoption on the Salesforce platform. Now, the ProSci methodology includes a framework called ADKAR, and ADKAR really focuses on managing individuals through change, and they provide a suite of tools that we like to use through the ProSci three-phase organizational change process framework. So let me talk a little bit more about that. So the first phase of the framework really focuses on preparation and getting alignment with sponsors around what we're trying to accomplish, what success looks like, and building plans to be able to work towards those outcomes. And what I mean by that is we talk about approaches for communication, training, who we need to talk to, where we can identify champions and early adopters. And then the second phase is really where the rubber meets the road. And this is where we execute against things like communication and training plans. And we make sure that we're engaging end users and making sure we're getting some feedback. So where we've identified champions, maybe we're getting feedback from them about where there's questions, concerns, potential resistance, so that we can mitigate that early. And then people think that once we've launched or once we've gone live with something, then we're done. And ProSci likes to remind us that the last phase of change really is about reinforcing and sustaining outcomes. Because the worst thing that could happen is we go live and then nobody uses it. So reinforcing through communications why we're doing what we're doing, why it's important, how it's going to benefit them, that's the last phase. So, given the background that I just shared, I'd like to just talk about three kind of typical adoption challenges that I see in working with customers to implement Salesforce. The first one is the classical end users don't want to change their process. None of us do. Inherently, we don't like change. And so, what I typically see is that we are going into an implementation, we're gathering requirements, but we're not focusing always on the process. So here at Vector, we like to take a technology agnostic approach to discovery and talking to end users and stakeholders to understand what their current state looks like, get a really good grasp of their processes, and then looking holistically at how Salesforce can automate, alleviate pain points. And then typically we talk customers through what the future state could look like as part of that Salesforce implementation so that we're not building a solution that's siloed from their processes. The second thing I see all too often is end users are engaged too late. We bring them in at UAT and we're all excited, and then there's a lot of confusion and questions and maybe anxiety because they weren't really a part of the process early on. End users are really uncomfortable with sharing their information and data, and they're not used to the level of visibility that a CRM has to offer to their leadership, to their colleagues. And there's a lot of hesitation and concern about who can see what and at what level. So now that I've shared some of the major challenges, let me talk about three tips that anyone can really do and should be thinking about with your Salesforce implementations. First, as you probably can imagine, engage your stakeholders early. Find super users, find champions, and use them to participate in demos, requirements, use them to help you communicate with the end user base and provide you feedback. It'll be critical and so much easier once you go into UAT if you've already got a little bit of buy-in with that small group. The second piece, communicate often. Don't wait until UAT. Start talking about the Salesforce implementation early on. What does it mean for them in their role? Will it benefit them? Paint that picture for them of what the future state could look like. And remember that communication doesn't have to be email. It can be supervisors talking to their team, teammates talking to each other. Communicate often and really prioritize making sure that that's happening so that you can get some information early on. And then the last piece is probably the most important. Don't underestimate the importance of sponsorship. ProSci tells us time and time again with their research that the lack of sponsorship is the number one reason why change projects fail. And when I say sponsorship, I really mean your leadership within your organization. Those people that are really pushing for implementing Salesforce, they need to be active and visible throughout the process and talking to stakeholders again with why it's important and making sure that they're not just showing up at kickoff and launch. They're also going to be critical to any sort of like resistance that might be coming up and making sure that you address that early on. And they can only do that if they're visible and active throughout the process. So there you have it. Those are my three top tips. If you have more questions or want to talk about change management for your organization, please reach out to me. Thank you.